This is Laserlight Presents All About the Gig. All right, today we are going to talk about covers and how to build not only just a set list, but how to actually study, practice, and prep a cover for gigs. And it's been something that has been on my mind, I'd say for the past few weeks, just talking with Dave and Devin about how their schedules are ramping up, the different venues that they're playing at, ranging from blues to jazz, to even some of the rock and soft rock, things like that. Basically, wherever they're playing, I want to learn more about how they're building their set lists, but more importantly, how they're learning these covers and what it takes and what reliance you have on the people that you're going to be gigging with. And I've heard them talk a lot about their prep and building these set lists, getting these set lists out to their players, who's going to be on what gig, giving them enough time to prep and prepare for. Sometimes it's not possible to practice collectively, as a squad for something. So, you really, it's intriguing to me that you guys can show up to gigs, and rest assured, right, that some of these players that hopefully all the players that you're setting up to play with are ready to go. And then also how you guys feel it goes off and what are some of the hits and misses and things like that. So, guys, welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's start with prep. So cover prep. Gigs coming up. It's in a week. You've built the list, whoever the champion is who booked it and is leading the squad and leading that booking and is designing the model for that venue. How do you go about prepping for a cover? And let's think about it in two ways. Maybe it's a cover of a song that you've heard your entire existence since your ears worked. And then maybe it's a cover that, you've heard, but you've never played, things of that nature. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about, build that in. How do you go about doing that? Here's my cover list to the group. It's such and such genre. Where do you go from there? I mean, you guys can, whoever wants to take the lead first.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things is, first off, what kind of a group am I making this for? Mm-hmm. There's a huge difference between solo duo gig, how I'm going to treat covers, say like a power trio, kind of like what I do locally in town, versus a 9-piece band. The same song could be played dramatically different on all of those. And an important thing is that for a lot of tunes, not all, but for a lot of tunes, the 9-piece band might be the only band that can actually truly do the arrangement of the song, like what you hear on the radio. So if you're going for 100%ing any tune, oftentimes having a lot of musicians picking up all the background parts, even when you think it's just like 3 people on a song, listen carefully. You'll probably hear extra guitar parts, extra vocal parts, an extra little like piano line really softly in the background. Like there's a lot of details in a lot of these songs, especially modern produced tunes. Like layering is everything. So your only chance at knocking a song out of the park 100% are with the large band anyways. So that means when you scale things back, by necessity, you must have a band that's willing to step outside of their roles in the song if they're only listening to their part. For instance, if I am the only harmony instrument, as in I'm just playing guitar and I have bass and drums, if I need to cover keyboard part, other guitar parts, horn parts, all these other lines, you bet that I'm going to change up the way I'm playing guitar. I might at first just comp or take those parts and learn them myself and find ways to melt in between the guitar part and those parts. Or I may take an amalgamation of all those ideas and create something completely new. I might add effects or things to, say, fatten the amount of space that I'm taking up on a track, because I know that as a smaller band, we have a smaller sonic footprint in terms of the amount of things we can do at the same time. So like little things like I'm going to use maybe more delay and reverb on tunes than I would in a large band. Because in a large band, those things might muddy up the mix. Unless it's a very specific delay or reverb effect for a song. I try really hard to have a drier sound with large bands because I just need my part to cut and fill its niche in the song. However, with a smaller band, and the smaller that band gets, the more room I'm expected to take up to kind of fill back out the space of all the missing members. By the time I get down to a duo gig, oftentimes I'm expecting that we're going to take this song in a completely new direction. And before I kind of get on a whole half-hour long tangent and talk the whole podcast, the last thing I'll say about that before I hand it off to Dave.
Sure. No, I got plenty of questions to fill.
One of the most important things is kind of the sixth sense that you get for tunes as time goes on to know what parts are the crucial things that make this song unique. As in, once the lyrics are out of the question, it's just a melody. You have to do the melody most likely. Maybe you can harmonize the melody a little bit. But that's a different ballgame. But more importantly, what parts are just like standard chord progressions or standard just like playing beats to the song? And does it really matter if we decide that I want to take the song faster or slower, or I want to change the genre or stretch the genre a little bit? And if we change up the basic rhythms and the basic grooves, that won't affect the character of the song nearly as much as there's a couple hits here. There's a rhythmic idea that goes dun dun da 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 like later on or something like that. I was like, we have to hit those markers. And the longer you do this, I think the easier it is to expect all the players to know what all of those little crucial moments are to say, you can make this song like a bossa nova or make it a rock tune or turn it into a ballad. All of those things are appropriate if you really want to. But your number one thing is you can't skip a couple of these key moments in the song or a couple key riffs or ideas. Don't twist those, because unless you're going to do a really hip arrangement of them that you plan out ahead of time, those are kind of the foundation stones that everyone knows. Like, if we all come together on those parts, then the whole band's together on that. And then we can spread out from there and kind of stretch the idea in whatever way we want. And I know I'm being very broad right now, but I'm sure you've written down some things, so we'll attack these a little more.
No, I mean, I am. I'm picking up on. I think everybody that's listening is also picking up on it, and they're probably questions are popping up in their heads too. And one of the key indicators you mentioned are markers. How can you get that buy-in? From the listener to I know this song, or I love this song, or it came across enough with the right markers to be an honest rendition, of being a cover. Yeah. So there must be, and I've often probably misused the term, but a cover band and a tribute cover band. Now, would I be right in saying that a tribute cover band is more about being exact to a song, or does tribute mean we're giving it our version? I think I've always misused that term. I think
tribute bands are quite literally modeling after like one particular band,
right?
So like
a Prince tribute band,
a Prince, there's like an AC/DC tribute band that's called like
Zeppelin,
AC 2, 3 or something like that.
Sure.
And what they do is they take it a step further. Not only are they learning it like identically, but they are specifically kind of handpicking members that kind of fit the description as far as looks go. They will dress like the band, they will act like the band, and they really try to like fully mimic the band. So when you have a tribute band like that, if you're hiring that band, you're only going to be hearing AC/DC songs that night because that's all they do. They are quite literally trying to portray that band. With cover bands, it's kind of a mixed bag. Some cover bands are very, very close to the record. Like some of them will do it almost verbatim to the record. Some bands will kind of, make it a little bit more their own with each and every tune. It just depends from band to band and what they're doing. And some crowds like it one way, some crowds like it another way. But that's an important distinguishing factor is understanding which band you're playing with, because if you walk into a band that's expecting you to kind of step outside and, you know, improvise a little bit and have some fun with it, and you are playing exactly what's on the record, although you did your homework and now you are playing that perfectly, that's not perfect to them, and vice versa too. If you know, if you're stepping outside of your roles and you're not playing exactly on the record with the band that is expecting you to do exactly what's on the record, then you're not doing your job once again.
Or the audience, right?
Well, the audience typically, believe it or not, the audience kind of doesn't care one way or the other a lot of the time.
Really?
As long as you are playing good music, a lot of the times they don't really care how you do it.
Interesting.
Some audiences really like the kind of like make it your own thing because that leaves more room for solos, that leaves more room for improvisation and kind of, you know, expanding upon the song. And some crowds, they almost want a DJ. They almost want somebody to just press play on something. So if you can nail something pretty close to the recording, they're going to be happier with that. It just depends from place to place and person to person and night to night even. So you might have a crowd at the same bar Friday to Saturday that's entirely different with what they want.
Well,
and
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the only thing I'd add is often, not always, often tribute bands have a much narrower focus than most cover bands. So it's either a very specific artist or it's a very specific theme, like we are 60s rock only a la Beatles, or like they do something very, very specific and they have more of a niche market and they typically market themselves in that. They typically normally play the records closer to the actual record. And then sometimes if they do a fusion bend on it, like in town, we have the local band Polka Floyd, who one of the band members there is the owner of Reverend Guitars, like, and everything. So there's a little plug for them. But anyways, like they do a polka band who does Pink Floyd tunes, and that's their shtick kind of thing, where it's like, look, they're obviously not playing things to the record because, you know, The Wall wasn't done in 3 with like a polka band. Like that's not how it was done. But like they've made it their own in that sense. But then they really stuck to their niche. The only other thing I would say is tribute bands don't always mean that people don't improvise either. But what it does mean is that you are expected to have a way deeper understanding of the improvisers of the band you're doing. So if you are a Led Zeppelin band or a Hendrix band or a Phish or a Grateful Dead cover band where there is improv there, and in fact it's probably less likely to be expected that you're going to do solos verbatim, but it is expected that you've done a very deep dive into those players and you understand how would that player improvise if they were improvising today. And you're not trying to put your own twist on it. You're trying very hard to get into the mind of that player. You've taken a deep study. You've learned a lot of their licks. You've learned their phrasing. You've learned the way that they typically arc solos. And it's not that you're not improvising, but you're doing it in a very narrow band of ideas. So that's also part of it too, where some bands will take the tribute thing to the next level where it's like, if they were playing today in front of you, this is what we hope they would sound like. Not what I hope it sounds like, but like this is our best rendition of what they would be doing right now.
Right.
Which I actually really appreciate because that's a fun way to kind of be a spiritual successor of something instead of just be the DJ. Though that being said, the DJ idea is far more common. Partially because it's easier. It's easier to just play something to the record than to try and embody a bunch of players. And
how would you describe, Dave, you know, the Amelia Earhart as an example? You know, you guys play all sorts of things from, you know, private events to downtown events, you know, to all sorts of different things, you know, county fair size like events, you know, you're doing things for the masses, you're doing things for, you know, maybe more controlled audiences, you know, based on the venue. But how would you describe the Amelia Earharts in the sense of they're not tribute, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah,
no.
you're having a more. You guys are probably approaching it more from an entertainment value.
Yeah,
you know,
a lot of the times we're learning the songs kind of in a broad sense, where it's like we will capture the essence of the song. We understand how the song progresses, but we also understand that our fans are there to see us. And they don't necessarily want to hear the song verbatim because if they wanted that, they'd just go out to their car and put it on, you know?
Interesting.
So, and some of that is by the sheer fact that, you know, if we're playing, a Billy Joel tune or something like that. We don't have a keyboard player. We have 2 guitars. So by nature, right there, we're changing how that arrangement goes. We have to. So that sort of thing will help us kind of tailor our set lists and tailor, what people want to hear. And honestly, that's a lot of fun. Now, that's not to say we never, ever learn a song verbatim. We learned a handful of Steely Dan tunes, and we learned those verbatim to the record. All the licks, all the riffs. Carrie and Megan were harmonizing the guitar parts because it kind of calls for it. But if we're playing like Watermelon Sugar by Harry Styles, like we're not doing it exact to the record. We're just having some fun with it and jamming over, a nice set of changes that allows us to not only have a song that people enjoy, people know, but also gives us room to improvise, stretch, and kind of groove and make people dance and have a good time.
So to Devin's point, you're locating and pinpointing the markers, making sure that those are good transitional indicators. People are anticipating if they're dancing to it, if they're singing to it. There's obviously things you don't want to omit that throws them off in their attention and interest. And at the same time, you want to have a little bit of creative freedom with it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about conveyance. Let's talk about conveying now. In your case scenario, Dave, do the Amelia Earharts rehearse? I mean, do you guys, is it a rarity or something big's coming up? So you want to just, make sure, party in the park or something. You guys want to cheat fest, all those, you want to kind of have a little more prep for it type thing?
It depends. For some of the bigger shows, we have rehearsed. When Eli and Grace moved down to Nashville and Kelsey and Brad joined the band, we obviously did some rehearsals to get them up to speed, make sure everybody was feeling good about stuff. But typically during gigging season, when things are just rolling, no, we don't really rehearse. If we want to try something out new, we might say, hey, everybody learn this. We're going to bury this in the second set and just try it. And we'll see what happens.
Over?
Yeah. If it goes bad, oh well. If it goes good, awesome. Then we put it on the list.
Yeah.
And, we're not going to try that in front of 5,000 people. But, if it's a bar gig and,
sure.
It's midnight on a Friday and people are already, a little bit overserved and having a good time, then that's a good time for us to try some stuff out.
4.5, 5 minute song will breeze right through.
Yeah, and it's common nomenclature to call it, rehearsal on the gig sort of thing.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Which being paid happen. To rehearse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Devin, conveyance, more towards the duo, trio, even quad, quartet thing. So what would be an atypical conveyance for you? You're going to build a set list for, like your trips up to Detroit only a couple weeks ago, and you guys were locating some spots, and you're championing these bookings. What's your conveyance method?
I mean, for that
to your players,
to that player, like what I'm telling my players,
like how, you're building the list, but then what's the conveyance? I mean, is it so advanced? At the level that you're at and the players that you're playing with, that it's an entrusting, next step to say, here's the set list. You do your due diligence, look up the structures, look up, if you're not confident in playing it, from the album or from, whatever you want to say, from hearing the rendition, you're entrusting them to do a little more finite research.
At this point in time where I'm at, the thing is, unless someone is doing me a real solid coming in at the last minute, or like I've run out of players and I know I have to help someone through the gig because all of my quote unquote A-listers can't make it, and I had to like hire a tier down, and now I know I need to like walk someone through the gig so that way I can have a gig. That doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, and most of the players, and I'm lucky enough to be in this situation, the idea is I send out a set list with just tunes, the key it's in, if it's not the original key, and a YouTube link. And I expect them to do all their homework on their own. And I don't give them charts, because part of what I am doing is making sure they do their homework. Because if they don't do the homework, they're going to fall lower on the call list. Because I need people I can trust just to go home and do their job.
Yeah.
So it ends up becoming a lot of that. And even though we will stretch the tunes, learning the tunes verbatim, most of the time the parts that they're not learning are just the beats and ideas that they're doing between, or the fact that I want them to rock it out a little bit more. They can do all that stuff on the fly. It's knowing that after the second verse, there's a breakdown. After the bridge, it's just drums on hi-hat, and I sing that part a cappella, and then we go back in. Or it's all these kind of cues and structures of the tune that they need to know, because the other things that I do and the places we take it to, those will all be easily showed on the bandstand. And I don't have fear of someone picking up on my cues, but they do need to know the other stuff, because it becomes a way harder game if I'm constantly cueing all the other stuff, because now I'm worried, like, not only can I not stretch it, but they also don't seem to know the tune very well. So I'm trying to kind of walk someone through.
Well, you know, and if you're composing as well as playing, it's probably taking away a little bit of the enjoyment factor for you too, you know, and it may come across, you know, to the listener's ear too, that it I don't know, might be a tick cumbersome, you know. I don't know. I'm just suspecting that it's just impressive, you know. It's just impressive to hear about how you guys set that up, and the fact that it is something that can just run out and run through, you know. You know, I'm sure that, yeah, I'm sure everyone is, like you said, there's those markers, there's those, you know, important segments where, you know, you have to drop back just to a hi-hat, you know, and a snare, or, you know, those are big deal, you know, I'm sure they're big deal things to the ebb and flow of the project in real time.
Yeah. And there's things that we do in the background as like professional courtesies to make this worth our while. If I'm going to make someone learn 30 of my tunes in a week,
your cover picks.
My cover picks. One, truthfully, I have some leeway for them. And I'm willing to like limp them through a couple things, because it's a lot of material to learn. I know that. But it's kind of a fool me once, fool me twice scenario, where it's like, I expect by the second or third gig they're doing with me with the same tunes, that if they made a mistake on it last week, that they fix it the next week. So that's kind of an expected thing, especially if you're throwing it out their way. But the courtesy on my end is not to book them for something else in 2 weeks and give them 30 different tunes.
Yeah.
With like,
I copy that.
Once someone has entered my circle of playing with a certain band, mind you, if we book a jazz gig next week, that's out the window. But if it's my trio, again, same group, same idea, same music, the idea is that I only want to make them learn the core canon of songs a couple times, like one time, and then I'm going to flip out like 3 to 5 tunes every gig, depending on what venue it is. Do I think that they want to hear country? Do I think they want more rock? Is there a new song I'm just trying out and I want to put it on some players so I can actually hear it with a band? There's all kinds of reasons I would do that, but I don't want to flip out a whole set of music, and I don't want to flip out all 30 tunes for sure. So that's a professional courtesy of saying, like, yes, I expect you to get your stuff done, but I'm not going to make you do that every time. That's a one and done. You do one gig with me for the first time, and I'll put you through the ringer a little bit. And then as long as things go good from there, then you've earned it. And like, I don't want to sit there and make you learn 1 million songs every week. And as players play with me more, and like Dave can attest to this, Dave knows way more of my deep cuts than other players do, because he's gotten to play a lot of my second and third and fourth tier songs to the point where I'm like, actually, we're going to pull out one of my originals tonight because I know you know it. So we're just going to throw that into the second set and see if anyone notices. Or like, hey, I really want to do this so-and-so cover. And we're going to jam on it for a minute and just have some fun on it because I know he knows it. And you have to feel that out with each player of, like, as they've learned a lot of my other tunes, I can feel more trusting. So every gig is a little different.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
No, absolutely. No, I mean, it hit on, you know, the definite points. Dave, is it a common thing for, you know, you've made mention, you know, to charts. Is it a common thing to have iPads out or actual charts out, you know, and just some sort of a trail,
I would say so.
Song to song, so that you feel confident until you build that up?
Yeah, and the ultimate goal is eventually to have things more memorized if you can. And there's a lot of people that would argue with me saying that, oh, you should never ever have a chart in front of you. But it's like, if you're playing 200 plus gigs a year and you're playing anything from jazz, serious bebop jazz, all the way up to, party rap and, dance tunes and all that, and quite literally everything in between, your tune list might be, quite honestly, 600 songs deep. And if you have the memory to keep that straight, good for you.
Yeah.
And if you don't, put an iPad up.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Try not to stare at it all night. You know?
No, right. Yeah.
Like, you should learn your songs well enough that you're taking glances here and there. Like, for instance, as a singer, I try work very hard that at most I'm glancing at the first word of every couple sentences. And normally that's all I need to kind of get my mind going and sing the rest of it, because I'm trying to make eye contact and smile and do little things and like look at people in the audience and make it feel connected, and that I'm not just up there singing karaoke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I
in a pinch, I would always make the case that I would rather have players on the bandstand looking at iPads playing things correctly than players on the bandstand not knowing how the tune goes at all.
Yeah, that's going to come off.
Yeah.
Too, right.
So
right.
I would rather people have charts.
Lesser of the two,
And it is a much more common occurrence. And a lot of the old guard hate it nowadays. Honestly, like people that are even 10 years above our age are chastising us a little bit about it. Not everybody, but certain old guard players really hate the iPad thing. They feel that it disconnects you from the audience and this and that and all that. And it kind of does in its own right. But I maintain that the old guard wasn't gigging in the same way that the modern players do. A lot of people kind of found their niche and they just kind of played in that particular circle.
Yeah,
whereas
they did their 40 tunes and they played in that same band 5 nights a week, doing the same songs every week. And it's like, if you do that, you're going to memorize it in a couple weeks anyways. Like, it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
Where if we book Monday through Friday, it's 5 completely different gigs with 5 completely different bands and 5 completely different sets. There might be a little bit of crossover, but it's not the same for people. And, you just have to have a wider variety of music to play. And
Yeah. No, totally agree. Where do you pull your covers from? I mean, obviously it's venue, audience, modeled, if you will, but, you go back as far as what decades and all the way up to the minute,
well, I mean, if we're playing jazz, that can go back to 1920.
Yeah.
Just kind of depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes the client or the venue or somebody might give us guidelines. They might say, oh, we really love country. Please try and put as much country as you possibly can into your set list. And we'll pull all the country hits, like Wagon Wheel and, Tennessee Whiskey and stuff like that. And, people, that will scratch the itch enough.
Recognizable,
and
relatable.
That'll scratch the itch enough that we can then have some leeway to put in some other songs. But a lot of times, it's very much following what we know is going to be crowd pleasing. So if I'm playing, at a country club, for example, I might try to feel out what the audience wants ahead of time. So depending on what they booked us under, if they booked us under like, an event band, they didn't give us a ton of direction. I might steer towards like R&B stuff, maybe trying to play some like George Benson, maybe some, Bobby Caldwell and stuff like that. That's kind of like skirting this line between like a cocktail hour and also kind of like an event band sort of thing. And then if they clear the tables out and, people start trying to dance and stuff, then we'll call audibles and be like, okay, it's time for some dance tunes. Let's start to ramp it up. If they were nice enough to kind of give us like, a rider and telling us, oh, this is how this night goes. This is what is expected, which some of the more corporate bands will do that for you. But if you're just a regular band booking and the venue didn't give that to you, then you have to kind of make some of those professional decisions based around past experience and reading off the audience.
Yeah. What's an event band? Oh, go ahead, Devin.
Oh, I was going to say, well, actually going along with an event band, the event that we just did this weekend, we did, a wedding. And the thing is like the tune list that they gave us for what they wanted to hear and what they said they enjoyed was fine. In fact, they were fine with most of the music we played, but we found out really quickly that even though they mentioned that they didn't want any what they called hardcore rap, which sometimes to me, I don't take things at face value saying that they don't want hardcore rap. I'm like, all right, we're just going to kind of stick away from all the hip hop stuff. Like, I don't think that's their thing. And then very first set break, they're like, I know we told you to DJ all this music, but stop. Just like we want to hear the WAP, we want to hear like Ludacris, we want to hear like Hey Yeah, like we want to hear all this stuff. And it was like great. Luckily by now, the first set for us in that band is typically more Motown driven, but as the night goes on, it gets more and more modern, more and more dance music.
Yeah.
So I said, that's good to know. I'm going to DJ all of that stuff to get you guys happy, but also I was happy to know that luckily our set list was close enough to like what they really seem to like. So it depends how flexible you are, because, you know, if they would have pushed a little harder, we would have been making audibles like, all right, every song we have before 1990, just kill it. Like we're gonna call some other tunes.
Yeah. Now you say DJ, not are you meaning that you were playing
just for set breaks?
Oh, set breaks. Okay.
So in order to itch that need that they wanted for some like, you know, kind of modern rap and modern like hip hop tunes, which wasn't something that we were going to be playing, but to give them that itch so that way they could have that, we made sure to play that stuff heavily during the set breaks so that way we could kind of give them a little bit of what they want. But it's like, well, we're going to come back with Bruno Mars song, and I'm not telling you Bruno Mars is the same as WAP. Not saying that at all, but I was like, just trust that we're heading into the same decade, and hopefully I gave them enough of a taste of the other stuff to, you know, make them happy.
Yeah.
But,
so event band, what's an event band?
Basically that, yeah, a band that typically does either like corporate events, parties, or weddings. That's what I kind of consider to be an event band. And there's some crossover too, like the Earharts, like we were talking about. They can be an event band. We have many of times been an event band.
Yeah.
But we're also a bar band too. So we'll also play, you know, bars, venues. We've done, you know, concerts in the park. We've done the ProMedica concert series. So we kind of double and triple dip into a lot of different things. Whereas this band that we played with last week and that Devin was mentioning, that would be through and through an event band. You will not catch that band at, you know, the Cock and Bull downtown. And you're not going to catch that band, you know, anywhere besides somebody's corporate event or a wedding. They specifically cater to that clientele.
Yeah.
And it's expected that this band has a large enough roster and a large enough group of players who are good enough that they will cater to whatever your event
Shout
is.
outs and requests or something?
Yeah. Well, not just like shout outs and requests necessarily. Sometimes that's actually frowned upon depending on what the event is. They might blatantly tell you like, look, we're the ones who paid you. If a bunch of drunk people come up here and ask you to play Freebird, that's put them down nicely, but no.
Yeah.
You play what we agreed upon already.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where once you agree on what you're being hired for, that's what you go there and play. Mm-hmm. And it's not like we came out and saw you and you did great Motown. It's like, sure, but that's not what we want tonight. We want 90s rock. Give me all 90s rock. Give me all 80s music.
Yeah.
Give me, you know, whatever it is. And that's what that band's expected to be.
Mm-hmm. And as long as it's pre-planned, that band will deliver that. Now, the other trick is when you have a band of that size, so we were what, 9-piece band Saturday? If we're calling audibles, that means 9 people have to know that tune.
Yeah.
That's a little bit tricky, too.
Right.
And we did. We actually did call a few audibles, and we all did know, you know, we all knew the tune, which was good. But if somebody comes up to you and they're like, do you know this, like, one Beatles B-side tune that's, like, you know, you have to bite the package of Rubber Soul and then you can find it if you look up at the moon.
Yeah.
It's like this really off Beatles song. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Even if like 3 of the members know that, that's not going to work because we can't cajole a 9-piece band into making that convincing. So
no, and like for instance, the audibles we called were tunes that were already on the roster. So it was one of those things where I'm going to double check with the bass player, which was Dave, so I knew he knew it already. The keyboard player, who I knew he knew it, so I just had to tell him we were going to do it. And then the drummer. And then be like, are all 3 of you good for this? Basically, it was just at that point, I knew I had to ask the drummer, like, do you know this? Because it's important you do. There's a lot of hits in it. And he's like, I'm good for it. And I was like, great. The horn players will figure it out. Okay, let's go. And we just go into the song and kind of, you know, expect everyone else to figure it out. Because I'm like, they're professional. They'll play something. It's a request. It's an audible. You know, they'll be happy as long as we produce a decent version of it. Because, you know, anytime you can do requests, people go nuts over it normally.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and there's a lot of reliance on the caliber of players that you've aligned.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know your own limitations based on what you
And
created,
it depends how deep of a cut it is. Because, you know, at the same time, I'll just say one of the songs was Treasure. If you play in any party group of the last 10 years, if you don't know that song, you should learn it tomorrow or tonight or yesterday. It's going to be called, you should just know it. So it was one of those things where if the drummer would have been like, no, I don't know that, I'm like, we'll do something else, but I'm slightly judging that you don't know that. Like that is just canon. That is a song we all need to know. It's like that and I Want to Dance with Somebody. Like it's like you're gonna be playing these songs till you die. Just take the time and learn them.
Get them. Yeah, carve them in. Well, okay, so we pinged down it a little bit. Appropriateness for sliding in some originals. You know, you guys think it's always best to start somewhere in the second set, you know, and then obviously something in the third set, you know. Do you limit yourself to how many? You know, what do you think about, you know?
You can sneak an original like one in per set typically. So like one or two depending. Like this Saturday I'm playing with a band over at Beer Stew actually, and this particular group does have original tunes, and I think the plan is to sneak one or two. I think over the course of the night we have like a total of 4 we're playing, so like we might be sneaking 2 into the second set and then 1 on the first set, 1 in the third set, and that's pretty typical going, right?
Yeah.
Bar goers will allow that, but typically they like to hear songs they know. So
yeah, but if they're good enough,
yeah, people like them.
I've got, you know, in past, you know, lives and you know,
I
was
mean,
that, you know, who sings that? Oh, that was ours. You know, if they're good enough, they'll pretend they know it or pretend they've heard it, you know.
Yeah.
And
but then you get the real honest ones that'll come up and be like, man, that second to last song, you know, who was that? You know, that was awesome. I've never heard that before. Wow, man, that was actually ours, you know.
Yeah.
Which is cool when that happens, right? Everybody loves that.
And that's a nice segue, at least into an idea of set building as well, because there's kind of a whole art to being able to write out a set and internalize, think about the way songs will begin and end and flow into each other. What is the overall energy flow I want for a set? How many high energy songs can I do in a row till people will get too tired of dancing? So it's like, when do I need to have built-in slow songs or breaks to allow that natural ebb and flow of allowing everyone to get really excited and dance hard for 3 or 4 songs, but then give them a slow song or something like that to cool down? Or it's like, do I think it'll be the end of the night, so they'll just like drunkenly party till the end? And like getting good at those kind of ideas and working your crowds is a thing. And with that, what I would say is when you start sticking an original in here or there, think about what kind of songs your original is like. Find a like song, and where do you normally put that in the set? How does it go over? And see if you can splice and replace it with maybe your original content, if that's something you're wanting to do. Like, for instance, there was an original of mine that was an instrumental. So right there, I'm doing a rock gig and I want to put an instrumental in. It's like, that's a tiny red flag to a lot of people. Like, be careful about that. You know, you mostly want to sing on those gigs.
Yeah.
But I already knew that it had gone over well for me to do like one instrumental a set, often as a set entrance or a set exit song. So that way it was a nice way to like vamp yourself into the set and then do regular covers, or to end a set with it and kind of let it drift out a little bit. So it was a nice way to do so. And one of the songs we did pretty often was 'Cause We Ended as Lovers. It's a Jeff Beck tune. I do get people who come up to me and they love that we did Jeff Beck, but that's like,
oh man,
that's like one dude at the back of the bar who appreciates it.
Man.
But that being said, that doesn't mean that the other people in the bar didn't like it. They just appreciated it for like, that was a very cool, like kind of like quote unquote virtuosic kind of instrumental idea. And it was like very guitar heavy and we dug what it was. And it's like, cool, well, I'm going to replace that with an original of mine that is in, I think, a similar vibe of that. And because most of you don't even know what the other song is, I don't feel that bad replacing it with a song that fits a similar niche in the set. And then like see how that goes over a couple gigs and see if like, am I getting the same reaction? Do people
become a constant?
Yeah. Do people react to my original the same way they reacted to the cover of the tune?
Yeah.
So that's a good way to do it. And it doesn't need to be originals. I mean, instrumentals like what I did. You know, if you have a tune that's kind of a nice singer-songwriter tune, and you normally have a singer-songwriter tune that you do often, it's like, well, one of the days, you know, flip it out there.
Yeah.
And see how it goes. See if you can still get the same ebb and flow of a set. And this is tricky because I realize this is asking a lot of people, but one of the easiest ways to experiment, unfortunately, is not when you're beginning. It is when you are already gigging quite a bit, and which is fine because, doing the quote unquote right things is a good way to get yourself established. But once you're gigging on the regular, you learn where your experimental points are in the night. You learn where you can sneak in an idea. And if it doesn't go over as well as you'd like, it's fine. It's not amazing, but it's like you're not going to tank anything. Nothing's going to be bad. No one's going to boo you.
Yeah, whether it's the audience or the venue.
Yeah, we're good enough to get through whatever idea we want to do, and I now am comfortable with where I want to experiment.
Yeah.
And see if I can start pushing some of these ideas.
Dave, any last thoughts?
No, that's a great point to end on.
Yeah, no, it truly is. And I thought it'd be a good overall point to, because who doesn't want to express themselves when they have the opportunities?
Yeah, and to be fair, I do the same thing with gear. I know that's not our discussion today, but I only started experimenting as heavily with gear when I already felt comfortable about being able to get core sounds out of almost everything I own. And I was comfortable with the bands and the people I was playing with. And then I would be like, I'm going to do the same gig over the course of 3 weeks, and I'm going to bring a different amp every time. And then after that 3-week experiment, I'm going to bring a different guitar, but I like one of the amps best at that venue. And now I'm going to try and bring different, and like, I'll start like kind of narrowing things down sometimes because there's certain things I prefer for certain venues. I like one set of things for inside, small area, crowded versus big stage outside, but also genre based or just how I'm feeling at the moment, and also just ear training for myself.
Yeah.
But it's like I didn't do those things for years. I was like, I brought the tried and true.
Yeah.
I know this works. It works pretty good for everything, and don't mess it up. So, to yourself, no one should be telling you don't deserve to, but to yourself, let yourself earn the right to experiment on gigs, because it's tricky, because you don't ever want to get to the point where you feel like you can't deliver what you've said you could deliver.
Yeah. Build a firm foundation.
Yeah.
Set yourself up well, not on sand, and start implementing these twists and turns, after you're established, and you got a good rhythm and flow of your own, right? Or with your crew. So guys, that was awesome. Cover execution, right? That sounds rough. No, well, we'll come up with the title of this one, but we did. We covered how to execute covers. So there you go.
And always have covers on your outdoor stages.
Yeah. Like
Speaking of covers,
That would be nice.
All right, from all of us here at Laserlight, we're out. This has been Laserlight Presents All About the Gig.